What's going on, everyone? So we have an update here. I think I'm going to do one for PlayStation 2 because it's good to do this. We are now at the 5th anniversary of the Xbox Series XS. And Eurogamer writes an article here, though I think they've been a little bit off lately, but this one is fine. But the other stuff, I'm like, what are you talking about? Definitely the Arc Raider stuff. The Series X is now at 5 years old. At this point, is there anything else left to say? This is written by a different person. And honestly, no. Sadly, right? Thinking about before it came out, the Phil Spencer energy, things that were said, we had high hopes, right? I like that. I remember I had a day one. I camped for my Series X. Didn't pay much for it because I traded in my Xbox One X with two controllers, and I had a couple games sitting around. I only paid $200 for my Series X. I remember that. Hell, not even. I think it was like 180 or 190 at GameStop. I always do that. It's like I didn't pay anything for my Switch. I barely paid much for my PS5. Then I traded that in, and a friend dropped down 100 too because we have this connection, and I got the Pro for like 380 with tax. You know what I mean? So I didn't pay much for that either. But scoping into the Series X 5 years later, yeah, it is the biggest letdown of any Xbox generation ever. And at the beginning, we really didn't think that was going to be the case. But if you were there at the beginning and you got those crazy Game Pass deals that are still up now and got the Series S for like 250 or 300, it was great at that time. You know what I mean? And getting those X specs day one, everybody thought that was an insane deal, and it was a steal. And it was. Same thing with the PS5 digital. That was even more crazy for $399 with the same specs. But the whole thing was really a good deal, right? You wanted to have high hopes. And then it was kind of a bummer seeing Halo getting delayed for a year. You remember that? So you had to wait a year on that. And then we had to wait on Forza 2. There was no exclusives, really. The only thing we had, there was time, was the Medium. I remember playing that. I beat that. But other than that, it was kind of rough. But what was cool is that you had a huge jump in backwards compatibility support and current gen games that had a lot of Series X S symbols that were coming up as we saw that started to pop up. It was somewhat cool and fresh at that time. You were hoping for something down the line that was going to be very interesting between Sony and Microsoft. I'm just putting in my little say before we get into this. And then, over time, it was just disappointing. There's no exclusives coming, and it's kind of rough. It really was. Outside of the good deals like Outriders coming to Game Pass in April. I was there, so I remember that Outriders was a nice grab right there. I was like, okay, this is pretty nice. We were playing that. I'm just trying to remember what the hell was going on at those times. And, there was some cool Game Pass third-party day one games. But other than that, yeah, it was rough outside of that. And Sony was coming with first-party games. Demon's Souls at launch. That not Little Big Planet, but, that certain type of one, Sackboy. And then, they had, a couple first-party games that dropped too. Things were looking good, you know what I mean, for PlayStation. They looked like they were getting that advantage. And then, yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, we do know, though. But let's continue to see what game or Eurogamer has to say, who's been disappointing me lately. So, going down here, though, that was just me to add in some of my highlights with that. They say, I honestly had high hopes for the Series X. Yeah, same here. And saw huge potential in a cheaper sibling, the Series S, despite cries from certain quarters. Let me zoom in a little bit for you guys. Certain cries from certain quarters about how it was going to hold back gaming development. Well, we know what that is now. I mean, it's not necessarily so much the case. A console from a Microsoft that had learned from the failures of the Xbox One, buoyed by a raft of game studios being given the freedom to make games they wanted to make. Perhaps the fact that the series consoles launched with a single exclusive. Yeah, no identity. And the identity that they had for their legacy was not there, and they got delayed. There were plenty of enhanced games from the previous generation from Xbox, should have alarmed me more, but I felt pretty good about the launch, even if it didn't feel especially new. Yeah, because the freshness was there, that was why. And you were just hoping for a bright future in a certain sense. Not necessarily that you had to outsell PlayStation, but that there was a unique identity there with the day one Game Pass games, and you're going to be promised some strong games. You know what I mean? Game Pass, of course, played a large part in fun, and it was cheaper at that time, so it was fine. Unless you're very lucky, a new console and a new game maybe or two is a fairly typical launch experience. It's an expensive business, so decisions have to be made over which games you're experiencing a new generation with. With Game Pass, my Series X had full access to the likes of Forza 4 and Gears 5 Enhanced. Yeah, exactly. Plus Tetris Effect and loads of older games. Halo Infinite had missed the launch window quite spectacularly. That's unfortunate. And would eventually disappoint against expectations a year later, but next gen was here, and I was raring to go. Pretty much, because we didn't have Forge and there were some other things going on, but the campaign was good and the multiplayer was cool, but it just didn't feel the same to me. But I thought Infinite was still a cool game. 5 years on from that optimism, it's hard to think of much to say about Xbox and Series consoles that hasn't already been written about and discussed ad nauseum. Pretty much true. But we need to do this 5-year update though. Most of it negative. In short, sentiment about Xbox brand feels like it's at an all-time low. Yeah, pretty much. The result of the division's parent Microsoft enacting a litany of layoffs and project cancellations, plus, jacking up the prices. First-party games releasing on rival platforms, no identity, such as PlayStation 5, and a technological involvement in Israel's occupation of Gaza and killing of Palestinians that resulted in a call to boycott Xbox. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Add to this a rise in the price of consoles, meaning the Series X and S both cost more today than at launch. Yeah, and a hike to Game Pass Ultimate's monthly costs. And calling things an Xbox that are not an Xbox, and oh boy, my damn light fell down. But we'll fix this though. But anyways, continuing on. And it's easy to see why more and more people are wondering why they should bother with Xbox at all. Well, no, they want the PC now. And it's now being turned into a PC. The Xbox is part of some of my fondest gaming memories. The 360 potentially being my favorite console of all time, especially from them. That's definitely my favorite Xbox. Yet even I wonder if it's time to just move on. Yeah, of course you have to. You can't sit there. It's not going to help you. Got to be right here, right now. It's the only thing that's real. Much of what I loved about the brand in the early days, Halo, Project Gotham Racing. As soon as you said PTR, I already knew with the little arrow lines. Oh man, I love that series. I played the hell out of it. Rare, who I think should have stayed with Nintendo, but there were some cool parts to that. Lionhead Studios, who made Fable with Peter Moore, to roll off the first to mine. It's either gone or a shadow of what it was. It's a fracture, yeah. Bungie's gone. They're a shadow of even what they are now. Left with 343. Epic Games is gone. You got Coalition. The only thing that's left is the Forza devs. And they have the Fable IP, you know what I mean? But everything else is, yeah, it's no longer there. You got to find something else to license out. At various points over the last 8 years or so, ever since the release of the Xbox One X, a console so good I was genuinely sad to put it away when the Series X arrived. I agree, I like that. It was a good feeling. I felt that Xbox wasn't getting what it deserved, whether it be recognition of the quality of its games, buy into the continued excellence of Game Pass, at least in consumer value terms, or acknowledgement that its services were often way ahead of the competition. With strong hardware and finally a more frequent rollout of big releases thanks to those acquisitions, a way for Xbox to truly challenge PlayStation for the first time since the 360 looked like it could be on the cards. It looked that way. Then we somehow ended up here, years of work to reach a point that perhaps only the financial might of Microsoft could possibly achieve. Only to exit that battle completely and put on the Halo t-shirt. I have to say that. There you go, Sony. You can have her. Nintendo next. Consoles for good and bad have always tapped into our urge to take sides. You like that, but I like this more, so you are wrong and I'm right. Your thing might be good, but my thing is better, so suck it. Now to that extreme, but at the point over the last 25 years, I felt varying degrees of that. It's all gone now. Yeah, now it's just obvious, For all Xbox's talk of a new upcoming generation of hardware, it's hard to think of the division like I think of EA, of Ubisoft. It's hard not to think, I agree with them. EA's gotten a little bit better. At least they've improved on some of their releases recently, but don't get me started with Dragon Age, but the EA still sucks in a lot of ways. And Ubisoft, dear Lord, they went right into the grave. Or any other platform, firmly, that's purely publishes video games now. Microsoft likely doesn't care. No, I mean, when you think about Microsoft, like I said, they're not a video game company now more than anything. They're pushing AI and data centers and all that. That's just what's left over to whatever they want to continue doing. If they can make that money and get more money off of that, and whatever they can take, they're going to get. And then they're pretty much going to just do what they're going to do. It's Microsoft. You can't trust them. Its finances no longer stifled by only being able to serve a small portion of a gaming user base. Exactly. They're not looking at that as Microsoft. Definitely Nutella. I mean, that hurts his pride. But here, 5 years on from the launch of the Xbox Series X and S, my connection to the brand is disappearing fast, and I'm not sure there's any way back. Yeah, it is fading like a ghost, and the only thing that's left is if I want to get on Game Pass every once in a while, but that becomes an icon that I have to pull up every once in a while, and that's all that's left. No identity anywhere. Everything else is everywhere on the Pro to be played better, on PC to be played better, and your next thing's going to PC device, which you want Steam to help you out with. You try to do all that monopoly because you couldn't grow anything internally. Whereas like Intel keeps on expanding out more offices because all their stuff is first party sales. You know, I showed those sales the other day, but even PlayStation 4 having some games up there, but there's a lot of third party still there too, but there's a balance there at least. Whereas like with Xbox, it's just straight no identity and all over the place. And I'm hoping to make profit off of everything else that's successful or call it an Xbox so that I can feel better about my failures instead of just being honest and facing reality so I can see what I really need to improve, but not going into a stronger delusion, which is not good. I need to snap out of it and say, you know what? This is reality. The only way I'm going to get better is if I realize that and not try to brainwash my audience even more and tell them that this is an Xbox when it's not, when it's like, no, you killed your brand and now you want to try to put that on somebody else's brand that's successful? No, that just makes you look like a complete loser. Because you don't care about Xbox, but you want to call something else that? Insane. So, like I said, you had to monopolize and hit the buy button only because you had that corporate pull money from your actual company on what it's based on since the 90s of monopolizing Windows and closing other people out. So when you really think about it, you could never internally grow your studios. You drove off everything and lost Bungie. You lost a deal with Epic. Cliff Bleszinski's no longer there. Lionhead Studios, Peter Moore's no longer there. The only thing that's left is that Forza studio that's organic, but you closed down that organic other one. But what could you grow? Everything you got tanked down. Even the sales of Doom have taken a dump. Everything. Pete Hines left. And then like when you look at it, it's like, man, where's their growth there? So you don't have any light. So that makes, to me, that just makes you an AI soulless world, an artificial world with a whole bunch of devil pull money. So, and it sucks because you would hope for some American brand identity and for some light there to say, hey, American has a lighthouse in the gaming industry and we have a brand, but that's not the case anymore. The only thing you have left over is to see what they're going to be doing on PC, and hopefully they can somewhat help on that. They have to call people like Pactor and have meetings with them to get some idea. And if you know you got to do that, and that's when you realize you don't know what you're doing. And then you got other people on a sinking ship, brainwashing them with stuff. And it's just like, yeah, I was trying to see some light there and I never found it now. Back then, there was some sort of light in the 360 era, but now it is just completely vamped dry for AI. And that's disappointing. And that's called being honest about how you felt being around since the beginning. I don't care about nobody who just came in the Xbox One late era or the 6, man, you don't know nothing. You weren't there. You know what I mean? So that's my statement on that. Now, so yeah, what else is there really left to say? Well, I hope you can find something to do beneficial on PC, as we saw in that last video, to help developers out, like do something for gaming, you know what I mean? If you're going to just exit out like that and just become a third-party publisher, like EA, Ubisoft, and all of them, who've been doing that for a while. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of hard. But what I can do is talk about games that maybe are coming out that I like from them or something if I'm playing that, you know? But other than that, it's kind of hard because I'm not a fake person. I'm not going to act like that. Now, this guy says, this is where I am now. Decades of attachment to the brand flushed away like the end of a life product they just don't want to bother with anymore. I think I'm done with them, even though I still think the Series X reveal was great, but it just went downhill over time from there. Pretty much. You know what I mean? And Quick Resume was cool too, but it's like, you know what I mean? I don't want to play anything. I don't even have your product anymore. It's not going to make me like a game more. It's only if I wanted to be on a bunch of games and on a live platform, then that future is cool. But without all that, what's the point? Then Quick Resume is useless then. Except for people that are still using it, then it's not useless too. But you guys get what I mean, though. We're just talking about the grand picture here. Series S got me into the current gen for $300 in 2022. Yeah. Initial storage space sucked, though, pretty much. That could have been more beneficial. $1 trillion company. Why not? You know what I mean? Should have gave you 1 terabyte, but they didn't. Thinking about them like you think about EA and Ubisoft is what makes sense going forward. Pretty much. And being in a Sega position with so much more money that if Sega would have had that money, they would have been successful because they would have created more in-house and been able to expand because they're creative. That's the difference. Sega had soul. Sega had creativity. Sega was in-house. They had their games where they say, come on, Nintendo, I'm getting in front of you. Nobody else ever did that but Sega. If you gave them more money, they were fine. Their problem was they went bankrupt because they got screwed over and they did some things a certain way and EA and Madden did that, but it was a money problem, not a creativity problem. It's different when you have the insides, but somebody's screwing you over in the business segment and a monopoly. Not the same. That's the difference between Sega and Microsoft. Everybody knows this too. More to the point, thinking about them like you thought about Activision. So, Quick Resume is cool. I wish I could turn it off. More often than not, it causes issues in games and doesn't work when I'm trying to rely on it. It has done that to me, and I end up losing progress. And I can't trust it 100% of the time, then I can't trust it. I know what he means. COVID gave a lot of false optimism for Xbox. Well, that S sales spike. They tried the Nintendo method. You know, it wasn't bad that they did that. The problem is what you have it at now. It's no longer a cheap entry anymore. So we can move in millions to get ready for that GTA launch, but we know that got delayed again. So, hey, I think we might have seen healthier, smaller growth for Xbox without COVID. I mean, dude, that's just wishful thinking. But all in all, we kind of get the idea here. You don't even need to bring up that article. This is a summary of Xbox Series consoles 5 years later. Disappointment, and they have to leave out. And it's... yeah, it sucks. But other than that, what else you gonna do? And I'm fine, though. I just have to say that from an Xbox standpoint, just being honest. I love console gaming. I love the PlayStation, and I love Nintendo, obviously, more than anything. I love my PC gaming aspect, as you guys know. I do everything, and I've always owned everything since 1993, so... That's pretty much what I have to say about this. Let me know what you guys think about this. Sony fiscal results in the morning, so we'll be covering that, and I can't wait to see the PlayStation 5 years later. We'll be doing that. Peace out, y'all. Stay cool.